Welcome to another episode of This Is Bet on T. Craig, and we are here with the phenomenal Lisa Guidry and Chase Sloan. And Lisa specifically is from Haymaker Loans. And not only do they have amazing programs, but we want to make sure that we give them the credit that they deserve in regards to how they're able to get their clients pre-approved and get them through the process so that they're able to successfully close on their future home. So we are grateful for you today. How are you feeling?
Thank you. I'm feeling really good.
Feeling good?
Yep,
You feeling
yep.
good?
Thank you
feeling
guys for
good?
having me here.
Good.
We like to take our partners out of the office and to your living room or your cell phone or wherever it is that you're watching and listening to this. And what I'm really grateful for is that we have partnerships with people that will be able to go deep on a subject and maybe explain the concepts that you hear online with accuracy. And so, Lisa, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome, and I know I'm going to learn a lot today as well from you guys.
So first, we want to start with a parable more so on the what discipline actually is. And Chase, could you expand on that a little bit more?
I love it. So you guys know I love talking to a story, right? I love a story. Randy says I squirrel. I like to call it strategy. So the way that it's set up is that, I know Thanksgiving time is coming, and all of us are getting ready to spend time with our loved ones and possibly learn how to prepare those meals that you remember growing up. So I remember this story, and a child, she's in the kitchen, she's getting ready to bake a turkey, and the mom cuts the back of the turkey, cuts the neck of the turkey, prepares it, puts it in the oven. She said, well, why do we do that? Why are we cutting it like that? She said, well, that's how we've always done it. That's how we do it. So she kind of was curious, though, so mom went to her mom. I said, Mom, why do we cut the turkey at the bottom and then at the neck? I don't understand. Like, why do we do that? She's like, that's just how we've always done it. That's how we do it. That's just what it is. Why are you questioning? But then her mom was like, you know what, let me find out. So this family's blessed, right? They got 4 generations. She goes to her mom and she said, Mom, why do we cut the turkey at the back and then at the neck before we get ready to prepare it? And she says, well, baby, because the stoves weren't that big. That's why we cut it, because the whole turkey wouldn't fit in the oven. And the reason why I share that story is because sometimes we can have subconscious habits that don't apply to where we are today. Most people have ovens that can fit a full turkey without cutting it. And yet, if you don't investigate why you do what you do, you could be following a habit that no longer serves you. So what we want to talk about today, Randy and Lisa, is the idea of, number one, habits, accountability, and consistency, the role that plays in our lives. And the idea that discipline is a myth and that it actually is not a characteristics of successful people,
Right.
that in reality, they just have a couple habits that they've mastered and kept consistent through their life. So I don't know. Maybe it makes sense. Maybe
No,
it
it does.
doesn't. But
I
Randy,
think
what
it
do you
does.
have
A lot
to
of
say?
sense.
So I would say this. When I was younger, right, when I was 21 years old, I looked to publish the book, The HAC Method. And the reason why I felt so compelled to do it is because I was in a little bit of a slump in January of 2021, where I felt like I just moved from Houston, Texas to Alabama. They just fired me from my job that I thought I was going to make so much money from. And then I had just got out of a relationship that I thought was going to be fruitful. And so I'm sitting in like just aloneness in a 1-bedroom, bath apartment. And I'm just thinking about like my life and like, what do I want to do next? Because I had just felt like I was pivoting into, looking to make some career changes, make some more money. And in that moment, I actually got on Clubhouse because I was looking to take a social media detox, and I didn't really think Clubhouse was a social media platform.
Popping, I remember.
Right, it was
Pandemic
jumping.
time.
It was jumping. And so I got on for about 15 to 30 minutes, and I was just talking about my life for a little bit of what I've done up until this point of joining the military and just being consistent and getting my real estate license. And there was the editor that I used to actually publish the book. She was like, well, habits, accountability, and she was kind of saying a little bit of more so consistency. And she was like, the HAC method. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And she was like, well, what if you have an acronym that you look to use to explain to people your story in regards to the HAC method? And so the reason why I feel as if habits, accountability, and consistency is an easier framework to utilize rather than just saying, oh, I'm such a disciplined individual, it then allows us to continue making momentum even on days or moments where we don't feel like it. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
You know, because I think one of the things that I had to learn was a lot of people are saying that, oh, it takes me 60 days to develop a new habit. And I like to ask the question, well, if it could take you 60 days to do it, why couldn't it take you 11 days or 14 days or 30 days? Why must it take you 60 days? And I think that when you go through the actual framework, it's the commitment to the habits, right, that you said that you look to utilize and then change your circumstances or change your life. And then you go into the accountability that what you're doing is holding yourself accountable to the new habits, to the new standards that you are looking to stay committed to, which we talked about in previous episodes, so that then you're able to continue making progress. And then by holding yourself accountable, you're then building the habit of consistency, so that then you're relying more on consistency instead of willpower to accomplish whatever it is that you're looking to do within your life. And so I like to use this framework to say, okay, hack your mind to then hack your body, or hack your body to then hack your mind.
You know, I actually love that because it simplifies the idea, again, that discipline is a lot. That in fact, it's just doing a few things and getting accountable to it, right? One of the reasons why the three of us are speaking with you today is because we want to show you, we want to be your accountability partners, right? It's one thing to listen to information, watch TV, listen to a Clubhouse, scroll on Instagram, right? And yet for me, one of the biggest differences on what makes it move, like
what makes progress?
Like what makes progress in my own life, it's always when I bring people in, right? Because I've told you guys before, we will fail ourselves, right? But once you start bringing in a team and there are people that are looking out for you and looking up to you and depending on you, it kind of changes the whole concept. So Lisa, from your perspective, what are your thoughts on it? Does this show up in your world, or how has this played a role?
No, that definitely plays a role in my industry as well too, because when you create habits, and our habit could be, you know, calling on our clients to make sure that our clients are doing the necessary steps in order to get them, you know, pre-approved, or the habits of calling on real estate partners like you guys, and consistently calling to make sure that our relationship is intact, and you know, all of those things. And then from this we have our if I have like if I have something that I do on a weekly basis, and then I'm going to go back to that. I'm trying to think of what we call it. I lost my train of thought here,
Like a
but
CRM,
it's
but something that is it to track it more so?
it's like a tracking system.
Okay.
And so basically, that tracking system, when I go back to it and I do all the necessary steps, it holds me accountable. It holds me accountable to do all of those steps, to continue to create the habits, be accountable, and it's all about being consistent with the weekly habits, the daily habits, staying accountable to my lead tracker or my tracker as far as like what I'm doing with my real estate partners, with my clients, and all of that. Because the end goal for us, of course, is to create relationships so that we can find our clients and then have those clients achieve their goal of home ownership. And so if we keep our habits, stay accountable to them and consistent, then we'll make those things happen.
Lovely.
I love that. So what were some of the habits then that you developed specifically during that time when you were kind of going through that transformation and turnaround? Like, how did you even decide what to focus on?
I think for me, I love the fact that you asked that question. I had to focus on what was actually going to get me out of the pain that I was feeling, because it was like I knew that I was suffering, but it was almost as if because of that suffering, I almost didn't know what to do. And so I looked to focus on the solutions that would get me out of that pain. And so what that looked like was how many jobs was I going to apply for, how many interviewers were I going to look to, or how many interviews was I going to look to have. So I was looking to put myself in the highest probability for me to then get out of that circumstance.
Yeah.
Right. And then another thing that I do is that the reason a lot of people be like, oh man, you're so consistent, or like, oh man, you're so disciplined. What I look to do is I'll leverage fitness as a reason or as a way for me to keep on being consistent in other areas of my life.
I see.
So I use it as a leverage tool to say that, well, I can go to the gym. That means I can make these calls. I can go to the gym. That means that I can keep showing up at events that I
Yeah,
probably
makes
don't want to
sense.
go to. But you know, it's like I'm willing to do the things I don't want to do because I was willing to exercise.
You know what's interesting about that, and because I do know your discipline habit with fitness, is that it really does start the day. So we talk about often how like there are lead dominoes in your life, and for Randy, it's fitness. He works out in the morning. I can tell because our first call, he's in the gym. I see it every morning. I can, by the time we get ready to have our huddle, I can tell if we're going to have a great one or a weak one because he was either in the gym or not, right? Like, and the reason I share that because it's the same way with me. I'm not in the gym at the same time that I'm not in the gym at all. Yeah, my lead domino is actually practice, right? And so I know that when I start my day right with the habits that I know will lead me to be successful, I increase my probability of having a more purposeful day.
Absolutely.
The minute that I miss my script practice at 7:30, it just snowballs into everything else. So last week we talked about winning the morning so that way you can win the day and win your life. And I think one of the key aspects is figuring out, like Randy says, okay, you got to identify the pain. You got that come to Jesus meeting. You got to look at yourself. You got to look at it.
And being able to reflect is whether it's finances, whether it's fitness, whether it's health, spirituality, whatever the case is that I need to identify what is it that I'm actually looking to accomplish. And then by doing that, I can just work backwards.
All right.
You see what I'm saying?
So I know you're probably watching and you're probably saying, what does this have to do with real estate? Well, the reason why we share the stories and we share the lesson is because I'm going to ask you, do you have a habit of comfort? And is it still serving you? And this episode, you guys, if we can just kind of pivot a little bit and talk to our second-time home buyers, those of you guys that have purchased your home, you've made that decision, or maybe you inherited a home and it's your grandma's home, and whatever it is, you've got the habit of one ownership, right? Does that make sense? So I think sometimes real estate, depending on your experience and who's teaching you, can be looked at like a shackle.
Right.
You did it once. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Don't go shaking boats and messing things up.
Right.
And I just don't know if that's all of the conversation.
It's not. I don't think it is. I mean, because like I have a niece. She bought a home and she experienced some pain, but at the same time, she bought the home. She was like, and then she ended up selling the home 2 years later. She said, I'm done. I was like, no, you can't be done. Because really, you didn't get the fruit of what you really needed to do. And so you need to know that you need to go in. I mean, home ownership, you have to move past, certain things when it comes to that, because there are going to be the ups and downs, just like with anything else, right? And so therefore you have to stay in, and so if your goal is to become a home ownership, that to me, that goal should never ever change. And then it's like, how can I move forward to do the next best thing? How can this home ownership bring me the wealth and the everything that I need? So if this is my low time, then I'm going to wait it out, and then I'm going to move to my next step. If my next step is to purchase another home or to hold this home and see where, it takes me, that's what I'm going to do.
So now, question for you. What does that then look like for homeowners who are like, okay, I've been inside my house for 2-3 years, and based off how the market is showing, I have a little bit of equity. So how can they look to leverage their equity for that next purchase?
Okay. So I think as far as them leveraging the equity for the next purchase, I think holding that home, and it's two ways. You can actually, you can hold that home and then get something like a home equity loan or a line of credit, and you take those funds out and and use those funds to purchase your next piece of property, and then you can hold that home, and then if you're moving up, you can rent the home out that you currently own, and then you could move up and then purchase your next home. Use that home that you just had as the primary resident, rent it out, and you're getting rental income. And then so you move up and buy the next home that you would like.
Awesome. So a few things that I listened is number one, you got to find out why are you doing it. Why did you get into home ownership? If you got into it because it's what your friends were doing, everybody was doing, I promise you, the minute that your hot water heater breaks, you're going to say, hell with this, and you're going to want to sell, right? So home ownership, like you said, commitment is not the absence of life. It just says that you've made a commitment. Oftentimes what we see, Randy, is that a lot of times people get into home ownership and they exit so quickly that they actually have negative returns. We call that a short sale, when you owe more money on home than what it's actually could sell for. And that's simply because there wasn't enough time invested in home ownership, right? Because not all markets are like the pandemic, where homes are appreciating year over year by exponentially, right? And so the first thing that we have to ask, and we get this a lot from the people that we talk to, is why are you doing it? And oftentimes when we hear people, they'll say, well, you know, it's about generational wealth. It's about my legacy. It's about financial stability. So understand that there's going to have to be a level of consistency to the thing. And that thing may be mastering what it is to be a homeowner and building the accountability. And that could be the people that help you fix your home, your lawn guy, all these things, HOA, make sure that you don't let your house deteriorate. And all of that goes to serve a purpose. So, Lisa, you kind of said a lot in regards to some plays. So I'm going to kind of write down what you said in regards to what home buyers can do. They got a little bit of equity and kind of break that play down again.
Okay, so we go back over it again. Basically, you can actually, if you're looking to access the equity out of your home, you can do a home equity line of credit or a refinance of that home. And when you do a home equity line of credit, and sometimes you may not know what you want to do right then, but if you have a line of credit, you could hold that money there, and then when you get ready to purchase that next home, or you get ready to do something with that, you can actually use whatever funds that you want to use, because if that home equity line of credit is for, I don't know, $100,000, but you may only need $75,000, you can actually access only the $75,000, pay that payment on that $75,000, and you still have $25,000 there available to you to possibly do some work on the home when you get into the home.
So is this you're saying credit, is that like a credit card, or are you giving me $100,000?
A home equity line of credit, it acts like a credit card. So basically, you pay for what you use. And that home equity line of credit is based on the equity that you have in your home. And most of the time, like here in Texas, the max amount that you can access is up to 80% of the value of your home, minus whatever your first mortgage balance is. So basically, if you have a $300,000 home, you only owe $100,000 on your home, but you want to access some equity in your home. And let's just use that you need an additional $100,000, or you think you need an additional $100,000. Well, you can access the additional $100,000 on a home equity line of credit, and from that line of credit, you can use whatever amount that you need. If you need to use $25,000 at a time to do whatever it is that you need to do, you can do it that way, and you're only going to pay the payment on whatever amount that you're using.
Okay, so because I get confused, we're going to make it plain.
Okay.
I know you guys got it. I'm the one that needs help. Okay, so let's just say an example. This is our first home, and it's now worth $300,000.
Okay.
I owe, my mortgage balance is $150,000.
Okay. So that means you have $150,000 worth of equity.
Okay, so how I get the money?
Okay, so first we would say, well, how much do I really have available to me? Because I told you that you have 150, but remember how I said you could only access 80% of whatever the value of your home is minus your mortgage balance. So that amount may not end up being 150, it may end up being $100,000. And the way that you're going to get a home equity loan, you're going to go to your lender, You're going to go to your loan officer, your bank, and you're going to say, I need a home equity loan because, I have the equity in my home and there's some things that I want to do. And so you would actually go complete a loan application, and they're going to do, an appraisal and get your income documents just kind of like you did when you purchased your home. And then they're going to, like I said, do an appraisal, or they do like a value estimate through the desktop underwriting system to determine what the value of your home is and how much they can loan to you. So you do have to go through the loan process. You have to go through a bank, a loan officer, or your lender to access the equity in your home.
So how is this different, I guess, from a refi? You said
Refinance.
the refi is a strategy too.
Because with the refinance, you're refinancing your home. You're refinancing the home, and you are changing the terms of your current mortgage. With the home equity line of credit, you're leaving your current first mortgage in place. So just say if you purchased your home 3 years ago and you have a 3.5% interest rate, you're like, well, okay, I want to leave that in place because I don't want to lose my rate. So then you do a home equity line of credit. A home equity line of credit is based off a variable rate. And so it might be Wall Street prime rate, whatever that is, and that rate, I don't know, could be 4%. And so you're going to say prime rate is 4%, and the lender might have plus a 2% margin. So then you're at 6%. So you're saying, well, if the rate is 6%, I don't want a 6% rate. I want to leave my current mortgage in place. I want to use the home equity line of credit so that I can access this funds, because I may not need the whole $100,000. I may not need the whole $100,000. Again, you may not only need 50 to purchase your next home, or to do renovations on your current home before you sell it, or whatever the case may be. So then you still have that other 50 available to you. On a refinance, you're going to lose your current rate, and then you're going to pay off that first mortgage, and then whatever the interest rate is at the current time, if the interest rate, again, if you have a 3.5% interest rate on that first mortgage, and if you tell your lender that you want to refinance, if the current market rate is 5.5%, you're going to refinance, you're going to pay off that first mortgage that you currently have on your home, and then you're going to get a new mortgage, take the cash out, and that new payment is going to be based off of 5.5%. And then you just get that whatever's remaining after your first mortgage is paid off. Because if your first mortgage is that $150,000, then they're going to pay off the $150,000. They're going to give you the $100,000, and you're going to pay the whole payment based off of now a $250,000 loan.
So now let me ask you too, what are a few things that people would need to do to then prepare themselves for a HELOC or a refi? 'Cause I know a lot of times people's like, oh, I got a lot of equity, but is there maybe like minimum credit score that they may need, or is there a few steps that they may need to do to prepare for this?
Well, one of the things that I always say too, whether you're trying to prepare for that or not, most people will, some people will purchase their home like, oh my God, I finally met my goal. I achieved my goal of home ownership, and now I can just kind of relax when it comes to all that you work hard to do, like to keep your credit up or whatever. So number one, when you purchase your home, keep your credit up.
Right.
Keep your credit scores up. Continue to pay your debts.
That's that habit.
Yeah, that's that habit. Like, continue to keep your payments on time. Pay your bills on time, because whether you have a goal or not, and especially if you have a goal to purchase your next home or to purchase an additional home, you want to make sure that your credit score is always in line. You want to make sure that your debts are always at a minimum amount. And then you want to make sure that you are still saving, because sometimes when you purchase a home, as Randy was saying, the lender is going to say, hey, I need a minimum credit score. The minimum credit score, they say, is 640. Sometimes that's kind of hard to achieve. So I always say, if you could achieve a credit score of a 680 and above, and 660 will work too, but you have more options when you have a credit score of a 680. And so we always know that the higher the credit score, the better options, more options that we have. Save money. Save whatever monies that you need, because sometimes some lenders may need reserves, and so they
Right.
might say, you know what, we might need 2 months reserve. Reserves are what you have to 2 months of your mortgage payment. So if your
Right.
mortgage payment is $1,500, that means that if they tell you that they need 2 months of reserves, that means you need $3,000 in the bank. And then keep your debts at a minimum, because your debt ratio is always going to matter in whatever type of loan that you're getting. The debt ratio is your total debts, which includes your payments that's reported on the credit bureau, plus your housing payment divided by your gross monthly income. And gross is, of course, before taxes are taken out.
So what I'm hearing is that, right, we always say that real estate is a math problem. And the reason why we say that is because it really gives you guys the black and white of what it is that you need to focus on. So 2 things that I heard in regards to the HELOC and the refi is, which way are you going, right? So if you have a low interest rate and you're moving into a higher rate market, then the best strategy may be a HELOC, because you don't want to refinance all of the terms of your money. You just want this part of the money to have new terms, right?
Right.
So the difference that I'm hearing is that a refi would refinance the whole terms. Now, here's where that might matter. We talk often about inventory, the type of markets that we're in. Randy, you shared something about inventory levels recently,
Right.
actually.
Right.
And that right now we've got more inventory
That
in
we've had.
Houston.
That we've had in the last decade. So essentially, there's more inventory at this current point in time than there's ever been in the last decade.
And you know what I think about when I hear that is that there's opportunity for deals to be made, because now it's just more homes to choose from,
Yeah.
right? What's interesting, Randy, is that people still get paralyzed, and whether it's because of interest rates or maybe not knowing what they can do, they don't take advantage of the fact that there are more homes available. When you have more buyers, we shift into a market where there's opportunity for strategy, negotiations, concessions, a lot different than what you may have experienced in 2020 when you didn't get any of those things.
Right. And I think something to also consider is that even if, let's say, one of the reasons why you feel as if or believe that you're not able to make an opportunity at this point in time is, what if you're then to look to collaborate with your family members who do have that 70, 60% of the equity that they can look to leverage for the next opportunity? So you're saying, you know what, I may not have it right now. However, I found a great deal. I'm consistently working on my W-2. Hey, could I look to have this money, hold this money for, let's say, 3 to 6 months, so that then you're able to invest into real estate?
Absolutely.
So it's an option. It's just, how can we look to collaborate to say still get whatever objective or goal that we have done?
And this is why everything connects, right? Because last week we were talking about, no one succeeds alone, and how to build out your tribe. Do you really have a tribe if you don't have an opportunity to present opportunities, right? If the only time you can present something, if it's just to strangers. So one of the reasons why I say you got to understand your why is because we understand that there are very different subsets of people in the world, right? Not everybody wants to be an investor, yet most people like the idea of mailbox money.
Cash
so
flow.
the way that you get that is by owning multiple doors. And Lisa touched on that in the idea of keeping your first home and then using that equity to now buy a bigger home, right? And you may rent this out. And Lisa, maybe you can answer this question. I don't want to buy a home because I can't find a home like I have for the price that I paid. And I can't afford it now.
You can't afford the home that you can't afford the new home.
Can't afford that one because it's like, oh my gosh, my payment is going to jump. I'm only paying $18, Lisa. I want to pay, right? That's an extreme. However,
I know.
We do get the concern that I don't want to sell my home because everything out there is expensive. And
yes,
it costs more.
But if you think that you want to purchase a home and you're just saying the houses are higher than what they were, a few years ago. The interest rates are higher than what they were a few years ago. But I do want to purchase, but these are my issues. Well, one of the things that I say, if you can afford to buy a home, if you can afford to buy a home, buy the home. Because one of the terms that we use, like in the business, is kind of like marry the house now and date the rate. Because that means that, because if you buy that house now and the rate may not be exactly what you want. And here's the thing, the rate is not what any of us want, because we all love those 2.875% rates, those 3.5% rates. And back then we thought that 4% was, oh my God, that's too high. So we would love a 4% rate right now, but we don't have that right now. So if you can afford to buy a house, but you just don't like the payment, the interest rate, or you just don't like the cost of the home, if you can afford that home, buy the home. Because then if you wait 6 months or a year, when the rates go down, and just say rates are 5% versus 6.5%, or rates are 4.5%, you'll like jump on it, you'll be ready. And guess what? That house will be more than what it was 1 year ago. You and everybody else will jump on the bandwagon, which means that they're going to say, well, okay, I want the house. I'll pay more for it. Okay, and I'll pay more for it. And so you and the next person are willing now to pay more for the house of what it's listed for, on top of the already increased price. So now you're really back at whatever the payment was that that you would have paid if you had bought the house back then. But if you had purchased the house a year prior at the higher rate, you would have had equity in your home, and then you would have been able to refinance at that lower rate. You go back to that refinance. You go back and you refinance, and you can refinance just to get the lower rate, or you can refinance and get some cash out now at that time.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love that you share that, and I think it's this idea and it's this concept of transferring your equity, right? So remember, we're not saying do a HELOC so you can go to Vegas. That's not what we're suggesting that you do. What we're saying is that, okay, if you have this much to play with, I don't know what 80% of this is, but I guess it's like $120,000, right? If you have $120,000 to pay with, well, chances are when you bought your first home, if you're like most buyers, you got in for 3.5%. And because of that, you probably have something known as private mortgage insurance, PMI. That's a line item on your mortgage payment, right? What would it look like if out of this 120, you now made an investment of, what do you see most second-time home buyers put down?
Second-time home buyers still put down 5 and 10% or something. 10%. Yeah, 5 to 10%.
5 to 10%. And that's a conventional loan. What's one of the benefits of a conventional loan?
You have lower mortgage insurance, and then you have the potential of even buying out your mortgage insurance. So you can buy it out for a lump sum amount, and then you can eliminate the mortgage insurance over the term.
Absolutely. And so what we want to do, again, we're always here to teach you guys how to think. These are how smart buyers continue to grow their wealth portfolio, is they get into their first home using something like an FHA loan, like I just shared. Correct. It's about 3.5%. One of the differences, however, is that PMI doesn't fall off of FHA loans, right?
Nope. PMI does not fall off. It's always there.
It's always there for the life of the loan. However, for your second home that you now have money to put more down, right? Because you use that equity strategically and not recklessly. Well, now you're putting down more money. And guess what? It's the house's money, literally.
Yep.
So you didn't necessarily have to work or scrape or save or get a gift, right? This is something that you use that you can now put in here. And oh, by the way, as this home continues to appreciate and you continue to pay down that mortgage payment, you have the opportunity for your PMI, your private mortgage insurance, to fall off. Fall off.
And if you've gotten money from a HELOC or you sold your home, again, you might have enough money to buy that mortgage insurance out, because the higher the credit score, some people might say, I'm going to buy my mortgage insurance out. It might be $4,000 to $5,000 to buy it out.
Right.
And so if you feel like you want to buy it out, then you can be done with it.
Yeah. I think it's important that, we don't just teach real estate, we teach you how to move through it. We always say that real estate is a vehicle to wealth. Well, this is how you move through it. And oh, by the way, Now you've got a door, which is generating rental income passively. That's that mailbox money. And you've got a new home. And Randy, I see people do this over and over and over again. And it can even get bigger than that.
Right.
So what happens after that?
I mean, whether you choose to buy, say it's a duplex or a quadplex, or you want to maybe get into commercial, I just think that leveraging the play of getting those multiple doors, paying it down, and then making sure that you're able to cash flow as much as possible on a monthly basis is where the opportunity really comes into play. And so I love the fact that there's different financing options that clients are able to use, or family members that you may know are really able to use because they've been in their home 5, 10 plus years.
Yeah.
So I think another thing to also keep in mind too is for people that are listening, or people who may also even be in the industry, is thinking about how old people are in regards to maybe if you're 30 to 40, 40 to 50, when did you buy your home and how much equity do you have to play with,
Yeah.
right? So and just looking at the statistics of who actually has the room or the money to move. Because I mean, at some point, like it's gonna have to like keep on kind of going in a circle in the sense of like, yes, you bought this home 10 years ago. Are you going to continue to stay in this home, or do you maybe want to level up so maybe that new first-time home buyer can now also get into this home as well? So I think it's honestly multifaceted in regards to the amount of strategies that we can use.
It's like
And,
the circle of life of real estate.
It is.
Right?
It
Like,
is. There's a life cycle on it. There's
We
a life cycle
grow
on it.
so we can bless, right?
Yeah.
And or bless others. And what's interesting is that there's a statistic that 70% of homeowners right now have 50% or more equity in their home. 50% or more of their home value, they have equity. 70%. So let's just go ahead and dispel this myth that there's going to be a big foreclosure wave that's coming, right? Because at the end of the day, while you might not sell for what you wanted to sell, you can sell without selling for a loss. So that is number one, right? But that tells me that more than half of America's population is stuck somewhere in here. And when we go back to that why of legacy and generational wealth and financial stability, could it be possible that the answer is literally in our backyard? There's a book called Acres of Diamonds.
I know.
And you're trying to go all around.
Right. You're looking for the answer elsewhere.
Looking for the gem. And literally, it's a couple conversations or a few tips away from you being able to tap in to what you already have, what you've already invested in. And so I think that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. And one of the things that I just thought about while we were here, if you were blessed to buy this first home and that be a home that you were satisfied with, or your dream home, and you've owned it for years, but you're like, the kids are gone, I want to do something different. I like Galveston. I like this place. You can take the equity out of this home and make this home your second home.
Right.
And then depending on where that second home is, it may not be an investment home, but it's a second home. You still got to qualify for this home and this home. So you got to be able to afford the first home and the second home together. But you might have enough equity in this home where you take it out and you pay cash for this home.
Yeah.
And then the second home, you can still make some money off of it because you can potentially Airbnb it.
Yeah.
For the times that you won't be using it. So it still becomes some type of investment home for you, although it's a second home.
My mom did that. My mom moved to Galveston. She bought a beach bungalow and walks by the seawall every morning. And let me tell you why it's beautiful to see. And I'm going to pivot for a bit. Randy calls it a squirrel. Side quest. And
That's my squirrel, probably.
here's why we continue to drive this point of doing it now. I talk about my mom and how grateful I am that I still have her and that she's living her best life in Galveston. What you doing?
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Her office overlooks the water. It's just great, right? And yet she shares a story that sometimes she's talking to her friends and her people in her sphere, and we know housing is going up. Housing goes up either way, right?
Right.
And as we get older and our income becomes fixed, whether because we've retired or because maybe we just don't have the same capacity to operate at the level and intensity that we were, it creates a financial strain.
Right.
Right? And I remember we were having a conversation with the customer, and they were saying that, I used to be very anti-capitalistic. I didn't want to get into, the whole buying a house and being a landlord and stuff like that. However, she had a change of thought when she realized that it's not just about you, it's also the people that you want to care about. And the biggest way to control your costs and control your future is through ownership, right? And so some of the reasons why we start this now is because imagine if home prices are doing what they do, which since cavemen were cave, we go up, right? Imagine waiting 30 years to make a decision because now the time is right. But now your circumstances have changed. You're not in your peak earning years, right? So the reason why we have this conversation now is not because this is the dream home, it's because it is the home that gives you leverage.
Leverage.
Yeah, definitely.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think it's so
That's good.
interesting that you
That's
mentioned
really
that.
good.
It's because my mom actually did the same thing. Not necessarily with the bungalow or overlooking the water, but my mom had purchased a home around that 2008, 2010 type of time frame. And then it was almost as if like literally 10 years later, she sells, kind of like keeps the money for a couple of years, and then looks to purchase an Airbnb in the downtown area near, Children's Hospital. So it's like those opportunities are very real. And if we're not making smart decisions or not allowing our decisions we've made a couple years ago to then be the reason why we're able to take a hold of these months of inventory now in Houston, Texas, I think it's almost like we're either shooting ourselves in the foot or not maximizing the time period that we're in right now.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be here forever.
And
I think that's the reality is that how many people are like in COVID, I'm going to buy, I'm ready to buy. It's like you're ready to buy in COVID. It's not like imagine what the situation or scenario would have looked like if you were pre-approved before COVID happened. And so now, what is it looking like right now? We're saying we got these months of inventory, homes are sitting. People are like, oh, there's no deals out there. And it's like, those very well are the deals.
Yeah, because you have to, I always say, don't listen to us. Look at the evidence. If you live in Houston, drive by 288 off of Delford. What did D.R. Horton just do? They built an entire community during one of the highest interest rates that we've seen.
Exactly.
How high did interest rates get?
8%.
8%.
A little bit over.
And they built an entire rent to live community.
Subdivision, yeah, like it's a community, yeah. Like
So what do developers know? What do
right.
successful wealthy people know about real estate that we don't? That we're so focused on the interest rate that we miss the opportunity. Randy, did you know that interest rates are tax deductible?
Opportunities. There's opportunities.
The opportunity, because that interest, you'll be able to write that off. You'll be able to write that off. And not only that, there's a place off of Highway 6, they're building a luxury home community of rental properties as well, because they are banking on people renting.
Now, again, it's
Literally.
when y'all get mad at us.
Yeah.
But when we say it's convenient, I'm just saying there are some people that are solving the problem of folks that don't ever want to be home buyers. And
They say
they're
no
making it
problem.
really nice.
Yeah.
They're making it really convenient for you to hand over your legacy. It's really kind of that serious. You know what I'm saying? And so one of the things that we always want to make sure you understand that with every opportunity there is risk. Lisa, where have people fumbled with the refinance? Where have they gotten themselves in more
Shortcomings,
trouble than what they were in? You need to make sure, what is the red caution? Tell us that.
Well, I want to go back to something that you said about the people, they're not buying and all. They're buying a house. Everybody, if you're renting, you're still buying a house. It may not be yours, but you're buying somebody else's house. So remember that you're buying a house.
Yeah.
It may not be yours, so you're contributing to someone else's equity that they are building. Now, when it comes to, are you asking like as far as like some of the things that people are missing on the refinances, what are they doing that may
Yeah,
not?
like where do they get caught up or mistakes that they make?
Well, one of the things that I think is a lot of people are not, I think you should go back to go back to your loan officer, your lender that you bought your home with, so that you could maybe take advantage of opportunities that you may not have with the next lender who don't, I mean,
That's
that you
good.
didn't have a relationship with,
Right.
because they don't have a relationship with you. So they're saying they're just padding you with everything.
Right.
Where if you go back to, you know,
The lender that you actually close
yeah,
with.
yeah.
Yep.
If you go back to the lender who you close with,
Mhm.
then they might be offering something. They might have a little to no cost just because you bought a home from me within the past 2 years. You know, so then because at the end of the day on a refinance, what you don't want to do, you don't want to pay for the same fees and things again that you may have paid for 2 to 3 years ago, when you can just go back to the lender that you went with before and probably get something that's going to work for you, and then they might have a bigger solution, you know, for you when it comes to, you know, the funds, how you're using that money, the fees that you're going to save, and then the terms, and show you some different things that's gonna benefit for you. You
I
know,
think that's good. I think what you just mentioned, that's a major
That's
key.
yeah.
Because the reality is that if you go back to the person who you actually close with, imagine maybe the programs or incentives that they have to give you, because they're like, we want to keep earning your business. We want to earn
Right.
your referrals.
Yeah.
By earning your referrals, we just need to show you certain programs, or we tell you, don't make a decision right now, give it a month or two where interest rates may drop some more, so that then it's like, hey,
Right.
you're able to make an informed decision, because you know that, almost like, I'm good people, you close with me, you know? So
Yeah.
come back. It's like, go back to the person that gave you the money.
Absolutely.
Like, you know what I'm
Absolutely,
saying? Go
right?
back,
Yeah.
go back to the person
Because
that gave you the money
Leave,
first
leave
time.
with the one you came with.
Yeah.
I think that the bigger message in that is a piece of loyalty and relationships, right?
Yeah.
Because, and this is just a tangent of why we go local, is because when you're local, those are real people that understand you. You may go to church with them. You may fellowship with them. You may, you know, do whatever it is that you do. They have a relationship with
They've
you.
built some type of relationship.
And they often know your story, right? They know what it took for you to get in the home. They may know about your family. You might have something different there. And I always say, especially with like lenders, like you need anybody, lenders, realtors, whoever it is that you do business with, you need to be in business with people that you trust, that you
Right.
know, that you like,
Absolutely.
that you can talk straight with. Like that is super big. We tell our clients all the time,
Just
like,
talk straight with us.
just talk straight.
Tell
Like,
me what it is.
Tell me what it is.
Tell me what it isn't. Let's get to work.
That's right.
Let's
I'm
get
like,
to
talk
work,
to me
like-
talk to me like you're talking to me like off the record. Because-
off the record.
It's
Yeah,
offline.
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Tell me everything.
our goal is to help you.
Yeah.
And we can't, secrets don't get saved. We can't solve a problem that we don't know exists. So the reason why we bring these conversations to you, and we're so thankful that you guys are watching and that you tune in, is because number one, we want you to have the tools so that way you can build the relationships. And then two, we want you to have the information so that you understand what you're doing, right? Because we also hear people and they're like, well, I didn't know that meant, I didn't know if I took out $100,000, I was gonna have to pay it back. Now I got a foreclosure.
Yeah.
Why didn't you know that, right? And also, we could do a better job explaining it. So,
Yes.
anything else you want to add?
No. We're gonna now get into the actual disciplines of life and how you can actually apply it to your everyday life. So first we have self, which is spiritual. What does that then look like for you in regards to whatever God it is that you look to then praise, just so that then as you're starting your day, you actually have a routine that you get into that builds that momentum for you going forward. Then we have spiritual.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna
You
let
got-
you preach and teach
no,
for a
no,
little
no, you
bit.
got-
Okay, not a problem,
So-
right?
Teach and Paul.
And so,
No.
so right, so to your point, Randy, right? If we're saying that discipline is a lie, and that it's actually the habits that you need to focus on, then these are the habits. There are 6 life habits that you can choose to master. And I would recommend that you pick one, not all, right? Because then you will just crash and burn. You won't be consistent with it, right? So I don't know if you can relate yet. Sometimes you kind of have that come to Jesus. You're in that pain, that dark place, and you say to yourself, you know what? In the morning, I'm going to be a new woman. I'm going to get up at 5 and pray. I'm going to run a mile. I'm going to make sure that I do everything on time. I'm going to go make a lot of money, and I'm going to grow myself and take care of myself. And you just get burnt out. It's just so hard to stay consistent in every single area of your life. So we kind of submit that you pick one,
Right.
and then you master that discipline, master those habits, and then once you have, then you start to add on.
And I think also something to keep in mind is that it all compounds. So whether you're talking about money, you're talking about health, you're talking about relationships, talking about time, it all continues to grow over time as you dedicate yourself to it. I mean, even when I was sitting in those dark moments, whether that was because money was not adding up or relationships were not going the way that I planned for them, it doesn't then mean that I wasn't still able to hold myself accountable in other areas. So as I was maybe feeling down, right, and my circumstances were not adding up, I made sure that I was still exercising, right, so I could keep my mind intact. And I was still making sure that I was eating right so I could keep my body intact.
Absolutely.
So you see how it's like, not everything, it's like everything may not be figured out all at once. However, it's not to say that you can't start with one and then say, wow, I'm managing my time better because I'm saying no to things I don't want to do. Wow, I actually feel better in the morning because I'm not telling people or over promising something I'm not willing to do. And then you realize, like, I'm getting better, I'm growing, I'm developing, I'm learning.
Yeah.
Right? My friend groups are getting better, or my vision is getting clearer, and it's like, why does this all feel like it's happening so fast?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not that maybe it's happening fast, it's just happening progressively.
Yeah.
So it's not like it is like a hockey stick in the sense that you're like, why does it feel like nothing is changing? And then all of a sudden, oh wow, I'm him or I'm her. But it's not like you just became him or her overnight.
Yeah.
So I just think it's just food for thought. Like, even if you're in a dark place, that doesn't mean that you still can't make progress. You still can't continue to take those circumstances, turn that pain into power, and continue growing into the person you knew you were capable of becoming all along.
I think it goes to the idea that success happens slowly, then suddenly. And oftentimes, you know, something my mom used to tell me, she's like, when you see those businesses and it say been in business since 1922, it don't mean that everything's been great since 1922. They just didn't give up,
They just didn't give up.
right? And that's what we're asking you guys to do, is just don't give up and focus on the habits. So like I said, if these are your discipline areas, then what are the habits that connect it? Of course, we talk about money on this show. We talk about wealth and real estate on this show. So let's just assume that you made a decision. Yes, I know you did. Let's assume you made a decision that you're going to get better in your money habit. Well, here are the 3 habits that we want you to focus on. Number 1, it's your gross income. You got to make money to save money.
You ain't lying.
That's just
You are not lying.
Listen, right?
You gotta make something.
100%.
Something. Just something.
I remember I was talking to my mom, and I'm always talking to her. I recognize that clearly. And we were
Smart
talking
lady.
about budgets. This is
Right.
kind of like, right, real estate is a little different than the world. So real estate been in a recession. Talk to one of your friends, right? And I was talking about like cutting, like you got to cut the budget. We got to cut the budget.
Yeah.
And also sometimes you can cut too deep. You can cut to the bone, and that can be very painful, right? And I know that some of you guys are like, I can't cut no more. I'm not eating. I'm eating $2 chicken sandwiches from McDonald's. Like, we are not here
For the whole day.
as judgment. You know what I'm saying? Listen, don't get the one from, I'm not going to say that. Lemon, right? You're living off ramen, right? You're living off love. You're eating rice and beans every night, right? You can't cut more, right? Okay, so we got to do something about your gross income. And what one thing can you do to make more money?
And I'll say for me, right, because we wanted to be as tangible and as practical as possible. The one thing that I knew that I needed to do to make more money was I needed to improve upon my skills. So what skills could I then look to develop that would give me the opportunity to make more money? Because I know a lot of times in society or on social media, they're like, you need to make more money. Here's the thing. What skills are you developing to then make more money? So whether that is sales, so my first year in real estate looked like me making thousands of phone calls, literally. So then it's like, oh, how do I want to make more money? Well, I worked on that, so I worked on the skill, and maybe I wasn't making as much money. And so now leveraging that skill in today's society has allowed me to have greater conversations with clients so that we are able to then close, which then allows me to make more money. You see Like,
Yeah.
this is the skill set that I needed to develop to make more money. It wasn't like, oh, I just need to make more money. Poof, you made it. It's like, no, what did I need to do? Who did I need to become to then make more money? And for
Yeah.
me, it looked like making thousands of phone calls.
Yeah.
And then I could say, as I'm thinking right now, like sometimes you have to start from the top. Like, I need to make more money. That could be your I need to make more money, or whatever your thing is, right? I need to make more money. So then that goes, what do I need to do that?
Right.
And we might know, like, oh, okay, I might need more partners. I might need to close. All of that makes more sense, right? But then what do I need to do? What are those actionable steps I need to do? And some of those, it goes back to the beginning of this. I need to be disciplined. I need to create a habit. I need to be accountable. And so it all goes back to whatever area in your life. It goes back to that accountability. It goes back to the habits and all, because whatever that top thing is, that top priority is, it's those things. It always falls back to that, to me.
You have to define it, right?
Yeah.
You have to define, okay, yeah, I need to make more money, yet how much more, right? If I give you $5, are you happy? Probably not, because that's not what you meant. So when we say gross income, and oh, by the way, this is why we say talk to the lender after you talk to us, because they're going to tell you what the number is, even if that means that maybe that mark is moved out a year from now for you to go and make that money or save that money. You cannot, if you don't, they said something along the lines of, if you don't have a target, you're bound to hit it. Because it doesn't matter where you shoot. So if you got to define the gross income that you desire to have, so that way you can have what you want to have and do what you need to do. Randy, you were talking about skills. I would argue, or not argue, but I would add that if you don't know the specific skill, like calling, focus on how you think, what you read, and writing.
Facts.
We've gotten away from that. And I will tell you that the gap between where you are and where you look to be is, how do you think? What do you read? What are you writing?
Right.
Written word.
Right.
And how do you speak?
Ooh,
How do you speak?
Because you know what this reminds me of? It's like, what is it that you are thinking about, right? Because what you think about will then determine what you do, right? And then what you do determines what you will be. And then, of course, it is what it is that you are looking to be will then determine how you impact the rest of, whether that's your circle or, like we talked about in the last show, the people who are your wealth determiners. So it's like, it's always like a series of things that you need to commit to, or that I've needed to commit to then become the person I am today.
And all of that creates value, right?
Facts.
Value and accountability. So again, this is all tied into, if you want to be a more disciplined person with money, then these are the habits you build and focus on. So we talked about your gross income. We talked about how you can make yourself more valuable, right? Because people pay for value. And then the third habit that we want you to focus on is the 70-30 rule. And what that means is you are going to live on 70% of your income. Okay, listen, you guys, I'm just giving you guys the math problem. This means that maybe something needs to happen. You need to make more money, or you need to cut back on your lifestyle. That's just, we teach principles. Okay, so, and then with the other 10%, you're gonna invest, save, and donate. Okay, right? So what we wanna do is teach you to scale, right? Because if you mishandle $100, promise you, you're going to mishandle $1 million, right?
Absolutely.
You can see stories of that everywhere. People did not master the habit of money, and so then when they get more of it, they waste more of it. So again, we want you to focus on your gross income. That's one of the things, Lisa, you said that you look at when you're calculating your debt to income ratio.
That's
So
correct.
don't let her be the one to tell you what it is.
Right.
Determine it for
You
yourself.
go tell her.
And then also, I would say, as you're actually paying attention to the 70-30 rule, something that I do within more so my life is that I look at my finances at least 2 to 3 times a week, period. Like, because the thing is like, you want it to grow, yet I'm not paying attention to it. That doesn't make any sense. So for me, I need to hold every dollar accountable. Like, okay, if I spent $4 today, where's that money coming from? And how am I going to say, go make $4 today? or what, whether that's amount of calls, whether that's amount of reach outs, whether that's amount of networking. I need to see a return on that money that I spent today.
What are you looking at when you look at your finances? Because I'd be looking at my bank account, and in the way it being set up with the checking and the savings, I'd just be looking at how many transfers. No, but seriously.
No, but seriously
No,
though,
that's-
no, but it's
but
very
that's
real.
something
It's
to
a
look
good
at,
thing.
too.
I
Yeah.
look at the bank account as well. Like I'm gonna open the app and say, okay, this was in the checking, what's in the saving, and what's actually going towards the 30% for say taxes, right? Because real estate is just a little bit different. And I look at every single one of these accounts, and then on top of that too, when I do look at the finances, I'm looking at a spreadsheet to say, okay, what's the net and what are the actual expenses for the month, and then what's that net profit? What did I make after I take out taxes? And then I look at, okay, what's the actual net for the month or even for the week, because I'm looking at it consistently.
So if this is new to you, then I encourage you to download some podcasts, download some books about money. That's why I said you got to think, read, and write. That's really what this comes back to. And whatever that habit looks like for you. So it may just be looking at your bank account in the morning. Because I just tell on myself in this show. Sometimes you know that it ain't nothing that bank account need to tell you, so you don't go look at it.
You're right.
And then
No,
next
you
thing
look
you
at
know,
it. You look at it.
they kept looking at it. They kept looking at you and put money in it. And now you got all these compounding fees. I just telling the people y'all.
But you know what the reality is though? It
I know
doesn't
everybody
last
on this, watching this is perfect.
It doesn't last forever. It doesn't last forever.
It doesn't.
And so it's like the wealth is being built over time, whether that's in skills, whether that's in community, whether that's in relations, whether that's actually the money that's in your bank account.
Yeah, it doesn't. Absolutely. So we trust that this has been great value, you guys. We actually really want you guys to start thinking about the habits in your life, the ones that you are lacking, the ones that no longer serve you, the ones that you need to build. And then again, that you will develop a network, a sphere of people that can help hold you accountable. And then of course, we want you guys to stay consistent by making sure that you tune in next week and checking out Bet on Key Craig, the podcast. Lisa, we are so thankful that you're here.
Thank you guys
so much
for having me. I appreciate it. I learned a lot too.
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach any of us on Instagram, send us a message, send us an email. We look forward to talking to you soon.
Let's get it.